Good day, everyone. To those who are attending here in person in beautiful Almaty, as well as those who are joining us in Canada and Kazakhstan via our online portal. Welcome to today's Energy Working Group, the second working group of the 5th meeting of the Kazakhstan-Canada Business Council, the KCBC. My name is Norman Storm, and I'm the Managing Director of Condor Energies, as well as the Chair of the Canada Eurasia Chamber of Commerce, the CECC. For those of you who are not familiar with the KCBC, I'll give a brief description. It was jointly established in 2015 by the Canada Eurasia Chamber of Commerce, formerly CERBA on the Canadian side, and the Kazakhstan International Chamber of Commerce on the part of Kazakhstan. The Business Council is co-chaired by the chief executives of Kazatomprom and Cameco Corporation, Messrs. Galimjan Permatov and Tim Gitzel, respectively. KCBC is widely recognized as one of the preeminent forums to promote bilateral cooperation, trade, and investment between Kazakh and Canadian organizations and companies. In addition to the Energy Working Group, KCBC also has 5 other active working groups: mining and natural resources, aerogeophysics and aviation, agriculture, education, and healthcare. Please refer to the CECC website for further information on the scheduled meeting dates of the other working groups, which will be held online later in October as well as November of this year. I would like to thank all of the speakers of today's working group for taking the time to update us on some of the recent technologies, opportunities, initiatives, and actions in the energy sector, both in Kazakhstan, Canada, as well as internationally. We currently have around 50 participants registered for today's working group. I will act as the moderator today for the working group, which is broken down into 3 sessions, and we will have a total of 12 speakers addressing us today. I will introduce the speakers individually prior to them giving their presentations. However, for ease of reference and to save time, you can find their digital bios on our CECC website. When we held the last meeting of the Energy and Natural Resources Working Group back in November 2020, we were mainly concerned with the impact of COVID-19, not only as it related to people's health, which clearly was the prime concern, but also the effects that the pandemic had on the world's economies, including those of Kazakhstan and Canada. The world economies largely recovered in 2020, early 2022, but it is very close to home to those of us who live in Kazakhstan, namely the ongoing war in the Ukraine. The war is creating many new and unforeseen challenges, not only for Europe, which was heavily dependent on oil and gas deliveries from Russia, but also for Kazakhstan due to its shared infrastructure and border with Russia. However, the current conflict also presents an opportunity for Kazakhstan to raise its profile and standing in Central Asia as the region's dominant economy and supplier of energy. I believe that previously many investors who were interested in investing in the region often first looked to Russia due to the overall size of its economy. However, today the picture is much different. Russia is no longer an option as far as foreign investors are concerned, and Kazakhstan, with its plentiful energy and other natural resources, including minerals and agriculture, has a great opportunity to fill this regional investment vacuum. One of the key objectives of this working group and other working groups within KCBC, as well as the Canada Eurasia Chamber of Commerce in general, is to promote bilateral trade between our countries, and we hope today's event will be beneficial in this regard. I would now like to invite the co-chair of today's working group, Jandos Timogali, to say a few words, and then take us through the first presentation, investment opportunities for Canadian companies in the energy sector. Jandos is the deputy chair of Kazakh Invest National Company, a government organization created to promote sustainable socioeconomic development of Kazakhstan by attracting foreign investment in priority sectors of the economy and provide comprehensive support of investment projects. Jandos, could you please take over?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Storm. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear excellencies, I'm glad to welcome everyone at the Energy Working Group meeting of the Kazakhstan-Canada Business Council, KCBC. In November last year, the working group meetings were held online and aimed to discuss issues of cooperation between Kazakhstan and Canada in the post-COVID world. It's encouraging that we're gradually returning to the usual format of work. This year, we plan to host the KCBC here in Astana offline. Our today's meeting is dedicated to the development of the energy sector. And this question is more relevant than ever before. Today, 80% of all greenhouse gas emissions in Kazakhstan are associated with the production of energy from fossil fuels. This is the main factor that has been negative impact to the country's climate. And therefore, modernization of the energy industry is of crucial importance for us. Widespread adoption of green and energy efficient technologies are core tools to achieve Kazakhstan's long-term goal of carbon neutrality. Kazakhstan pursues consistent and active climate policy. Our country was the first in the CIS region to ratify the Paris Agreement, which has become a turning point in the international climate agenda. Ranked fourth in terms of carbon intensity among more than 200 countries globally, according to the Global Carbon Atlas, we have the set of ambitious goals of achieving carbon neutrality by 2060. Considering that the most of 70% of our electricity is generated by coal, its achievement will require significant structural changes in the country's industry and economy. Our draft strategy for achieving carbon neutrality by 2060 provides for massive economic, technological, and social transformation. It will be adopted by the end of this year, and Kazakhstan has created all of the conditions necessary for the transformation of production and technological processes, and we hope to cooperate with the Canadian companies in this field. And as Mr. Storm mentioned, today I have a short presentation on the investment opportunities in the energy sector. Just give me 1 second. Kazakhstan and Canada have a lot in common, including the geography and climate, multicultural society, and very importantly, the structure of the economy. And on this slide, you can see the information on our bilateral relations. They are traditionally warm and productive, and we successfully cooperate along various directions in this field. Today, Kazakhstan is Canada's largest trade and investment partner in Central Asia. In fact, over the past 5 years, FDI from Canada to Kazakhstan has reached $920 million. Last year alone, Canada invested $385 million, recording the tremendous growth after pandemic. Over 100 companies, the participation of Canadian capital, successfully operate in our country, including, as it was mentioned, Cameco, gathered more than 380 billion of FDI, thus staying the largest FDI recipient in the Central Asian region. So why Kazakhstan is increasingly attractive investment destination at the moment? As you know, and this is mainly information from our Foreign Affairs Office to Canadian companies, Kazakhstan is the largest transit hub in Central Asia. And historically, the Great Silk Road passed through our country, and this ancient Silk Road is restoring at the moment. And we're the central link in the implementation of China's Belt and Road initiative as well. Kazakhstan has robust infrastructure for all types of transport, including railway, seaports in the Caspian Sea, road and air infrastructure. So today, 83% of land transit traffic along the China-Europe corridor passes through Kazakhstan. Cargo trains reach their destination in just 13 days, which is 34 times faster than by sea roads. So in general, market access is one of the key arguments for the international investors. So Kazakhstan has direct access to the markets of more than 1 billion consumers. We're talking about China, Eurasian Economic Union, and the countries of Central Asia and the Caspian Sea. So Kazakhstan can become the gateway to the largest markets, offering multimodal logistics and opportunities. And we can see the gradual increasing interest of the Canadian companies towards the diversification of the transportation of energy resources as well. So on the next slide, there is a brief information on the natural resource base of Kazakhstan. As you know, Kazakhstan is one of the largest countries in terms of agricultural land area, an important supplier to the energy markets and to the world commodity markets as well. In addition, as the World Bank estimates, there are over 1,000 unexplored deposits still present in Kazakhstan, valued over $46 trillion. So on the next slide, there is a brief information on the fiscal incentives, which is the various subsidies, tax exemptions, and non-fiscal incentives. And I would like to mention also that Kazakhstan has 13 special economic zones located all over the country and 36 industrial zones as well. And last year, the government introduced the new support tool for the large strategic investors, which is the investment agreement that can be directly concluded with the government, with the profile ministry. And the investment agreement provides a wide range of customized incentives and ensures stability of legislation for up to 25 years, not only legislation, but overall terms of the contract, up to 25 years. So now let me briefly introduce Kazakh Invest National Company. And our organization is the National Investment Promotion Agency of Kazakhstan, the unified investment operator for our country, and we provide a full range of services, support investment activities, and advance particular projects. Kazakh Invest can act as your ultimate investment guide in Kazakhstan. For potential investors, we provide detailed country information and market overviews, as well as specific investment proposals. And for potential investors, also, we organize targeted visits to Kazakhstan, set up meetings with the central government bodies and the local authorities. We have representatives in all regions of Kazakhstan, and also important service is business matchmaking. So we assist in searching and selecting the strong local partner. So we assist in project structuring and provide various options for financing as well. Therefore, we guide investors all the way through their project implementation stage. And even after successful launch of the production in Kazakhstan, we provide continuous aftercare support on the questions investors may have to their investment journey in Kazakhstan. Now, let me briefly elaborate on the energy sector at a high development potential in Kazakhstan, not only oil and gas, but also other subsectors. And today, as you know, ESG criteria factors are gaining significant traction. As such, in accordance with the goals set by the green economy concept, Kazakhstan reached 3% share of renewable energy in the energy composition by 2020, and they aim to reach the carbon neutrality by 2060. And indeed, Kazakhstan has significant potential to develop this sector, and the existing potential of wind energy is estimated to 920 billion kilowatts per year, and the solar energy $3,000 per year, as you know, and the hydropower energy 62 billion kilowatts per year. And in this regard, the state is improving the regulatory environment, creating the most attractive conditions for investors. In 2018, Kazakhstan introduced renewable energy auctions, whereby the government signs a power purchase agreement, PPA, with the successful bidders for up to 15 years. And auction winners are also entitled to exemption from electricity transmission fees, priority dispatch, and investment preferences as well. And such measures enable to double the number of renewable energy facilities in our country. And as you know, today many companies successfully operate, many international companies successfully operate in this field, such as General Electric and Total, Havel, China, and many other companies we can mention. Notably, next auctions will take place in October this year, and we invite the Canadian companies to participate in the development of the renewable energy sector in Kazakhstan. And in general, according to the government's plans, by 2035, Kazakhstan will introduce 6.5 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity. On the next slide, you can see other subsectors of energy. You can mention green hydrogen and gas production. Talking about green hydrogen, as you know, the global market, this type of energy is forming. It will be forming within the next decade, I think. Today, Kazakhstan at the stage of exploring the possibility of implementing the large project in the field of green hydrogen production. As you can see from the news, several large international companies from this sector are entering our country. They're highly interested to work here. Foreign investors are ready to explore the opportunities, and Kazakhstan is set to integrate into the new global energy supply chains. A possible solution is to export the hydrogen produced in Kazakhstan to the markets of mainly European Union, but also the East Asia as well. At the level of the government of Republic of Kazakhstan, together with the Ministry of Energy, we're supporting the two mega projects by foreign investors, whereby Kazakh Invest acts as a strategic consultant. As you know, in July this year, the Association of Green Hydrogen of Kazakhstan was formed, and Kazakh Invest was one of the initiators, together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We're highly supporting this idea, provided a platform, and they're fully open in order to explore the new possibilities in this field. Additionally, the gas industry plays a key role in reducing the use of coal. Notably, the level of gasification of Kazakhstan has reached 53%, almost 10 million citizens have access to gas, and domestic gas consumption is growing rapidly. And our government gives utmost priority to the development of this industry. As Kazakh Invest, we are ready to offer a number of investment proposals in this field as well, together with other fields of energy and mining, metallurgy, and other fields of petrochemical industry as well. So to sum up, investment incentives and opportunities across industries, developed infrastructure, and the green corridor for priority projects, accessible dialogue platforms at all levels, This is what Kazakhstan already offered to foreign companies. And Kazakh Invest is committed to provide a comprehensive support during your investment journey in Kazakhstan, and we're highly motivated, highly interested to support the projects in the energy sector and specifically in the new energy subsectors. Well, thank you very much for your attention. I will pass the word over to Norman Storm. Thank you.
Thank you, Jandos, for a very definitive report. And I think I can say personally, from personal experience, that we work very closely with Kazakh Invest and Jandos and his team, and they're very helpful to people trying to enter Kazakhstan, or even companies like us who have actually been here for a while. So special thanks to Jandos for presenting today, and and also many thanks for his support for our initiatives in Kazakhstan. Thanks, Jandos. Our next speaker is Mukhtar Mankeyev, the General Director of the Ministry of Energy's Information and Analytical Center of Oil and Gas, who will provide us with an overview of the oil and gas industry in Kazakhstan. Mukhtar.
Good morning. Good morning for local participants, and good night for the people who is participating from Canada. Yeah, I guess there is midnight already. So it's my pleasure to be here today and give a briefly overview of energy sector, especially on oil and gas. If I may, I will share you my presentation. Okay, just a minute. Can you see it now? Thank you.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, the Information Analytical Center of Oil and Gas, it's actually a government-owned agency. So we are responsible for the daily accounting of oil and gas production, condensate production, counting of the amount of oil which we send for the refineries to the export, import, and many other things. As Mr. Timurgali Jandos already mentioned, oil and gas, it's one of the priority sector in Kazakhstan, and especially for the last years, it's one of the most, or let's say, biggest sector where actually investment, foreign direct investment, have been attracted. So our goal now is to promote, of course, and to continue this trend, and of course to bring it up to the new level with a more added value, with a more consistent and more effective way how we can now manage in the current situation. So the Kazakhstan, as you know already, it's one of the top leading country. Now we actually among the 15 and owning 3% of the oil reserves. So just to, if I can share the key indicators up to September of this year. So we already produced more than 11 billion tons of oil, and generally you can see that more than 60% of our country's area occupied by oil and gas sector. So it again shows that this sector becomes, and it has been and becomes, one of the priority for the government, and currently we are paying much attention to develop a new geology exploration program. So actually it's a approved program. So the goal is to make it more clear, and you know that the biggest oil and gas fields and deposits, they all been actually started, I mean, the exploration and the further production since the beginning of 90s. So the biggest challenge for Kazakhstan is now to implement this geology exploration program, and many investment, including the private investment, foreign direct investment, are attracting into this area. Here are some figures. I guess the organizers, they will share with you this presentation, so I'll not repeat. There are many different global companies representing in oil and gas sector of Kazakhstan, and among them, as you see, the Total, Chevron, Shell, and some others. And just to mention or to make a new highlight, many of these companies are investing now into the green energy sector as well. So for instance, Eni, this Italian biggest company, oil company, they already launched several wind farm projects in Kazakhstan. And Total also has a big plans to invest into the green energy in Kazakhstan. Chevron has established a direct investment fund, which has a let's say there's a package of projects or pipeline of projects, not only in oil and gas sectors, but also in green energy, agriculture, IT, and the different other sectors. So again, just to mention that the oil companies now becoming not only the players in our oil and gas sector, but they are making the good diversification of their portfolio in Kazakhstan. And of course, I think the role of a government, the role of an investment agency is huge, as they provide this different kind of investment incentives and different kind of support. We also pay big attention to develop a local content policy, especially our company Information Analytical Center, where I'm a CEO. We are responsible for accounting of local content value as well. So for instance, some stats or figures from previous year shows that it's a general top 5, let's say, market segments and market or products have been bought in Kazakhstan. So for instance, if tubular products have been bought by oil companies for $132 million, so around only 30% of them have been produced in Kazakhstan. So there is still a big market and a lot of opportunities for, in this case, for the Canadian companies. I know that the oil and gas sector also very strong in Canada. So if you have interest in investment in different kind of products, especially in the oil and gas service segment and for producing such kind of products, so you are more than welcome. I think Kazakh Invest can provide some service, and from our side, from our agency, we can provide you with all necessary data and with all necessary market research and following assistance as well. So if you are interested in such kind of market segments, please, you can contact us and we will provide you top 20 with the market value and the market shares. So it would be probably interested for the future investment. Just to share you what kind of couple of biggest projects in Kazakhstan are under implementation. So one of the biggest oil field, it's called Tengiz-Chevroil, owned by Chevron, American company, and Kazmunaygas, it's our local national oil and gas company. So for instance, now they are finalizing one of the biggest projects in the world, actually. It's FGP, Future Growth Project. So you can see that the implementation of the FGP project will increase the volume of oil production at Tengiz field by 12 million tons per year. So it's actually a big amount. And the currently budget already around $45 billion. But in my opinion, it will increase a little bit probably till the end of the project. So generally, as a result, amount production will increase by 39 million tons, or daily we are planning to have 850,000 barrels from this Tengiz field. And the second biggest project in Kazakhstan, it's an offshore project called Kashagan. So you probably also heard about this project. It's owned and operated by the consortium of 7 or 8 shareholders. So a consortium called NCOC, North Caspian Operating Company. So just to give you numbers, for instance, it's still under the implementation, this project. So they're actually planning to start the phase 2. We are now negotiating the final FEED conditions. So, but currently, since the beginning of the project, already by the investors or operators of this project have been invested, as you see, 138 billions of dollars. So there are many other different companies and different fields where the international companies are becoming the investors and becoming the operators. And I just wanted to show you the figures and the numbers that actually must prove that investment climate and generally support by the government and by generally agencies in Kazakhstan for the foreign investors are really in place. And you know that there are many different positive change are coming, including the court system, including the investment protection system. So in that case, we are keen to work with and continue to work with the foreign investors, and of course, always open to give you any kind of figures that can again prove you to invest in Kazakhstan. So you can visit our website, and we have also special. Recently, we launched a Telegram channel, Energy Official. So there are daily update of our oil and gas sector. You can see the daily production, the daily different kind of interested data for players in oil and gas sectors. And of course, as I already mentioned, we are ready for cooperation on behalf of Minister of Energy, and for further seminar and for further workshop. I would like to wish you the productive speech and the productive cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mukhtar. That was a very, very good presentation, very interesting facts. And all of us know how big these oil and gas projects are, but to actually see the numbers presented on a paper like that is pretty amazing. So thank you for that. Thank you for taking us through the sector, and we appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is online from Canada, wrapping up our session 1 presentations today is Mario Krapin, the Director of Trade for Europe and Central Asia for the Ministry of Jobs, Economy and Innovation of the Government of Alberta. Mario will be speaking on the future of oil and gas development from a geopolitical and energy transition perspective. Mario.
Thank you very much, Norman, and thank you very much, everyone being here. It's a pleasure to speak today at the Energy Working Group meeting, Kazakhstan Canada Business Council. My name is Mario Krapin. I'm Director for Trade in Alberta government, covering trade promotion activities for Alberta businesses in the markets of Europe and Central Asia. So just one disclaimer, that my comments, opinions, and are solely my own and do not express the view of opinions of my employer, in this case, Alberta government. So let's move on for the next one. Just a second. Okay, so pretty much what we're going to talk today in this 10 minutes, like a very short overview about demand supply and the balance of those, in the next year to come, geopolitical current events, that it's happening right now in the world and impacting in oil and gas development, both from upstream, midstream, and downstream perspective and market ones. Energy transition is a very key change right now. What is happening? Investments in economy in oil and gas currently in the world stage. And we'll talk a little bit about Kazakhstan energy development in the context of that change, and with some, remarks about, how Alberta, Canada, and Kazakhstan is working and can work, collaboratively in the future. So just, here, I put, the forecast for International Energy Agency, which is pretty credible source in which we see current and future supply demand dynamics, non-OPEC and OPEC, ones. And pretty much we see prediction is beyond 2022, 23 and on that the supply demand, could be in a balance and that, we are talking about around 100 million barrels per day. So where supply will come, it's pretty difficult to forecast, but definitely from North America, offshore Africa, Norway, Algeria, the Middle East, of course, Russia as well, and in the context of supplying more Asian markets, Central Asia, including Kazakhstan, and potentially Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan, China, and Australia. When it's come to demand, we've seen shrinking demand in the last 10, 15 years, coming from European Union, Europe, but also offsetting by emerging markets, in Asia, especially industrial based, like demand and transportation. There's no secret that the biggest, chunk of that demand is coming, from India and China. About the price, don't ask me that, like it's very hard to predict that. There's always could happen something that will disturb that market, like you see in the context of the war. That could be 40, could be 250, who knows, depends, about the investments, but also about the level of consumption, in the world. So going to the next one, I'll talk a little bit about geopolitics. So what you see just now, you see a little bit creation of bipolar world. The world is establishing on one side, always the countries, and the rest, like going through the development through BRIC and the Shanghai Organization for Cooperation. The role of UN is a little bit weakening, and the reminder of what is happening in the League of Nations during 1920s. But let's see, how this is going to evolve. Definitely, the world needs cooperation. How this, all developments would end up, in what sense, remains to be seen. I don't want to have any forecast there, but definitely we are talking about some sort of deglobalization. And the deglobalization will be definitely being seen in some parts or more than yet the rest. That will probably be in connection with the supply chain disruption and the changing supply chain right now in the world, which countries want to see critical supply chain close to home, especially in industries that they are strategic to them. When it's come to oil and gas, depends about where the oil and gas production and refining, its position. It's the proximity to markets, market density, and of course, the closeness to offshore, options. Petrodollar I put there. It's very interesting what's going to happen there, and because this is, as we know, very powerful tool for United States, but we will see now many countries are moving for trading, oil and gas for using the dollar, American dollar, and using other currencies, and we will see how this will change the markets in the next, like 3 to 5 years, and in the near future. So when it's come to Ukraine war, Russian invasion, it's very important part of oil and gas, not much as a Ukraine oil and gas producer, but as a transportation hub. Also, this is very important in context of the European supply of hydrocarbons. As we know, like Russia pre-war exported 40% of the European natural gas need, and 2.2 million barrels of oil and 1.2 million barrels of oil products. Where this will go, well, we've seen, like reverting some of those supply to China, and this is important in context of Kazakhstan oil and gas as well. Some of them, to India, some of them to Iran, some of them even to the Gulf Coast, or some of them, just transporting with some interesting fleets. They are just, switching off GPS, and I just want to say that it's very difficult to track, where this oil and gas is moving. But definitely there's a tremendous flaring right now, and one thing is happening in Russia, and that my colleague Darcy, who is very expert in emission reduction, he'll tell a little bit more. When it's come to energy transition is happening, and the big money is investing, is being invested into that. Many countries, like proclaim they targets to be climate neutral. EU did that, by 2050. Canada did that by 2050 as well, to be net zero emission. And Kazakhstan announced, as we know, as it has been mentioned, to do that, by 2060. Because in achieving net zero emission is considered more feasible than achieving zero emission at the national wide scale. And the tools, that every state and every country has on disposition are fiscal and program support, generate electricity without emission, use vehicles and equipment that are powered by electricity instead of fossil fuels, use energy more efficient, remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and many others. So we have in Canada different, taxations for larger emitters that we just, for example, in Alberta, using that, for investing in new innovation and new technologies when it's come to emission reduction. When it's come to energy transition, there's old new solutions on the hydrogen side, on CCUS. I just want to mention that we in Alberta have a very strong industry and projects around CCUS, and this is something that will be definitely worthwhile pursuing and developing together with Kazakhstan industry and partners. On the hydrogen side, definitely on the production side for natural gas, but also like green hydrogen. And very, very interesting to mention here that Alberta have company and operators that operate hydrogen from producing to transporting to storing. And that's something that also could be discussed later in the foreseeable future with Kazakhstan partners. As we know, like Kazakhstan has a very good capacity when it's come to renewables and power. Infrastructure is a key in any energy transition, including in the new green transition. How to retrofit existing natural gas, for example, pipelines to fit to hydrogen and the carbon CO2 transportation. This is something that we have experience in doing and operating in Alberta. On the mining side, very important. The mining is extremely important in energy transition. This is something that Kazakhstan is very strong, and the mining and minerals will be a key factor in energy transition. As we know, here's the batteries and energy storage, as I mentioned, and of course, don't forget LNG and as a aim transporting natural gas and making natural gas a world commodity, as well as the nuclear as a base load for electricity generation. So all of those are a very important topic and thematic in energy transition. And some of them are definitely interest of us, to work and share on win-win solution with the Kazakhstan side. A little bit about the world economy and energy investment. As we know, current state of world economy, it's relatively good, having in mind that we in post-COVID, that we have an inflation right now, there's some trade barriers are developing. There's energy crisis for sure in some parts of the world, and as I mentioned, geopolitical developments are those that pretty much making things worse at this point. However, making worse means more opportunity for different stakeholders in the world economy and oil and gas development. And I believe that strongly that Kazakhstan is one of them that could position itself as a trading point, as a new resource point, as a reliable hydrocarbon and mineral source and suppliers in the world. Oil and gas finance and investment. There's a strong lobbying from some organizations, not for profit, for big oil and gas companies to produce less oil. There's a strong, unfortunately, de-investment movement in some parts of the world, However, I believe that investments will flow into oil and gas, will flow in mining, definitely because world needs more energy, and that's given. So we will see how this is going to pan out in the future, but definitely for the reason that people and industry needs energy, I believe that investments will be strong in that perspective. So with that, I would just move to another slide. The last one, I'll talk a little bit about Kazakhstan energy development in the context of that, like energy change. As we know, Kazakhstan is positioned, centrally positioned to Eurasia. And I believe that it's going to have, with all these disputes, will have a really important, has now, and will have a even more larger and bigger role in oil and gas and energy development. There's a great opportunities, to ramp up oil, to expand on mining, and just to be a clean energy hub for Central Asia. This is something that we in Alberta could work together. On emission reduction solutions, on environmental services, in a mining in oil and gas, in a carbon capture and sequestration, in geothermal, building together with our Kazakh partners, energy infrastructure, in a hydrogen CCUS and conventional oil and gas, working together on the water management, and looking, innovative solutions in oil and gas development, energy development, including, some solutions in digital oil field. I just want to express my my content, being here and just having a chance to present. Looking forward to for future engagement with Kazakhstani institutions and companies. And I would like to thank you, all of you, Canada Eurasian Chambers of Commerce, our Kazakh counterparts, and looking forward to hopefully to see you very soon in Kazakhstan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Lots of food for thought in that presentation. And I think one thing that I took out of it, of course, is, again, Kazakhstan is well placed to take advantage of all these opportunities, whether it's mining, whether it's renewables, whether it's increasing their oil and gas production. I think we have all of those potential scenarios in play here. And I think one thing I'm very happy with and commend the Kazakh government is they're using a policy in this country where they're not rejecting one form of energy, they're embracing all forms of energy, which I think is important given these tricky times that we're in with energy shortages. So thanks, Mario, and appreciate that. And I do hope that we have opportunities to further develop the already good relationship between Alberta and Kazakhstan and Canada and Kazakhstan. And we thank you very much for presenting to us today. That wraps up session 1. So opening session 2 will be Mark Taylor, the principal of Taylor Energy Advisors. Mark has acted as an advisor to the energy sector for more than 30 years and has lots of experience in oil and gas. Mark's presentation discusses energy policy versus regulations from an Alberta perspective. Mark?
All right, thank you very much, Norman. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be there. I'll put that in quotations. I'm going to try and slow my usual presentation style down a bit because I want to save the poor translator back in that booth from trying to keep up with my usual pace. I did check the weather, and it looks like Calgary and Kazakhstan, where you guys are right now, are experiencing about the same nice fall weather. So would it be nice to be there in person? Let's get my screen shared here. There we go. Perfect. All right. Zoom says you can all see it, so I will take Zoom's word for it. Want to thank the organizers for a great opportunity. It's always good to share perspectives, especially at a global scale. There's lots of challenges in front of everybody, and the more we can collaborate and share ideas and share solutions, the better off it works in the long run. So, basis of my perspectives, Norman gave you a little bit of my background. Quick summary is I spent about 30 years on the upstream side working for companies developing unconventional oil and gas, from coal bed methane to shale gas, tight oil, etc. Then moved over and I worked at the Alberta government regulator for 5 years. I was the EVP of operations there. One of the things that we did while I was there is I built a team that created the methane reduction regulations. So there was some discussion at the start of this about the greenhouse gas emissions related to the upstream oil and gas industry in Kazakhstan and the need to start to reduce those. So that was something, again, as a large oil and natural gas producer in Alberta, we had the same challenges. So we built regulations to reduce the upstream release of methane by 45%. And now as a country, we're looking at increasing that stringency to reduce it to 75%. And then since I left the regulator, I've been an independent advisor to a number of governments and regulators around the world, talking about similar kind of things to what I'm going to share with you today. Really, the key is, from my perspective, is you're trying to balance the needs of the investors and the producers. And again, we heard about that right at the start. Is, Kazakhstan's looking to increase foreign investment, so you need some certainty is the number one thing. And so then the regulators and the policymakers are trying to balance that with what the needs are of the people of the country or the jurisdiction that you're working in. And if it was really easy to find that balance, then we would never have panels like this, because everybody would just get it right. That balance changes month to month. It can change day to day. I was quite intrigued with what I heard about the new Kazakhstan policy of major projects getting a 25-year guarantee, I'll call it, that the regulations and the policy aren't going to change. So that's the kind of cycle time you need. If you're going to invest tens or hundreds of billions of dollars, you need that kind of certainty in the long run. So you're probably you've already heard me say certainty about 4 times. You're going to hear it probably another 10 or 12 times before I'm done the presentation, because if there's a common theme here, it's that certainty or predictability. You're not going to attract investment. You're not going to be able to get big projects done unless you can deliver that kind of certainty. Lots of confusion, at least in the Alberta side, over what's policy and what's regulation. So I'm going to give you a little bit of my perspective on what's the difference. And again, this is one approach. I'm not here to tell you that Alberta has this all figured out and everybody should just photocopy how we do things and that would lead to success everywhere, because it won't. There's not one size fits all. Every jurisdiction has to find their own balance. So again, this is not a sales pitch. I am not pretending that we know everything about this. It's simply the approach that I know the best. Policy usually comes from the elected government officials. So it's high level. And as a former regulator, I can tell you that it quite often is vague. Policy is the kind of thing that politicians like to talk about, so they don't like it to be too specific, because then they might get pinned down by it. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that can be a problem. When it comes to the regulator's job is to take the policy, listen to what the elected officials have said, and then put together some very clear rules that people can follow, so that those policy targets that the elected officials have set are actually going to be met. So in some ways, a regulator is a translator. You're trying to translate that broad policy statement coming from the government and turn it into something that an investor could use or a producer could use to actually go and do work. So that's great. Now you drive down into the regulation and you say, okay, well, what kind of rules do you want to create? You can either be sort of 2 extremes of the spectrum. A lot of regulators historically have always been very prescriptive, which means here is the rules. This is the 22 steps you need to follow if you're going to develop an oil and gas pool in Kazakhstan. That's really good from some perspectives, because it's very clear, it's easy to understand, and it's easy to tell if somebody's not following the rules. It's a pretty simple system. The problem with it that we found in Alberta, at least, is that it really hampers new technology and innovation. Because as soon as innovation and new technology start to be deployed on something like reducing emissions, for example, tomorrow there's going to be new tools for reducing CO2 emissions that we didn't know about when we wrote the regulations yesterday. And if our regulations are very prescriptive and there's a checklist of what you have to do, that checklist may not actually allow the great new technology to be used until you rewrite the regulations. And inherently, regulators will take forever to update their regulations. So that's a balance that everybody needs to find as a regulator. Where am I going to be prescriptive? Where are I going to be outcome focused? But again, you're looking for that predictability or that certainty, and you want your regulations to be effective and efficient. So you want them to do what they're meant to do, reduce emissions, don't allow pollution of the water, whatever it happens to be, but you want it to be efficient so that a company working with your regulations doesn't have to spend millions of dollars in months and months to get outcome. They can get to the outcome quickly. And another unique set this up is that the leader is a government agency. And again, they are setting the rule based on the policy of the elected. And that means an elected official call the regulator on any product. They can work elected officials' opinions, but the
Mark, could you please turn off your video? We're having some
law is
disruptions to the internet here, so
okay.
if you could turn your
That's
video
fine.
off, thanks.
You don't need to see my face. So again, that perspective of does the regulator need to be arm's length from the government? Absolutely not. There are lots of jurisdictions where the regulator is completely embedded within a government department, and it works great. So again, just an Alberta perspective that we've chosen to segregate the two to a certain extent. Okay, this next slide, don't take the picture to mean that I'm big on international bribery, because that's obviously not where we're going with this, but governance is important. So as I started off in this presentation, major oil and gas projects, for example, span decades. And we heard about two huge, like world scale projects that you have going in Kazakhstan that I've been following because as I've been in the upstream industry since those things kicked off. So again, was great to hear that the government of Kazakhstan has introduced that 25-year certainty policy. Right. So they're saying if you're going to come and invest hundreds of billions of dollars, we are going to guarantee that the rules aren't going to change partway through that cycle. As those people, those investors are going to need the 25 years to get their money back. Right. So nobody expects policy and regulation to stay constant forever. Right. And in fact, if you let your regulations stay constant for too long, they become stale and they probably become an impediment to actually doing business. So there is a need to refresh these things. And again, it's just finding that balance of saying, well, we want to keep current. We want to change policy when it makes sense, but we don't want to scare the investors off. And my experience, because we've experienced this in Alberta in the past, we've had dramatic shifts in government policy, and it has led to a complete freeze on investment in the province of Alberta. Luckily, it didn't last long and we were back into business, but you have to really find that balance. You know, Alberta's often mentioned when I was at the regulator, we had dozens of companies come to visit us every year to learn how we regulate, because people acknowledge that Alberta has some of the most stringent regulations when it comes to oil and gas development in the entire world. So investors might hear that and go, well, why would I want to invest where there are the most stringent regulations? Because that sounds like it's going to be cumbersome, slow, and it's going to cost me a lot of money. But on the flip side is over the last 70 years, Alberta has been attracting tens of billions of dollars a year of foreign investment into its oil and gas sector, even with the most stringent regulations or some of the most stringent regulations in the world. So it gets back to that predictability. Investors are confident that they know the rules aren't going to change on them and they know how to work within them. So, and now, especially with ESG taking a forefront in the investment community, being able to say that you are operating in a jurisdiction that has stringent environmental requirements is actually a plus if you're an investor. So in some cases, our stringency has come full circle and it is now attracting more investment than we've ever had before. So last time, I'll say certainty, right? That is my number one thing, whether you're setting policy or you're setting regulation, you need that certainty. And then the very last comment is there is, as I said earlier, absolutely no reason that you can't have your regulator firmly embedded into the government. But if you ever get to a point, again, this is Mark's opinion, but if you ever get to a point where elected officials become decision makers in a regulatory system, then it tends to create a little bit of havoc, because politicians by nature are attractors of attention and they want people to think they're doing the right things. And sometimes I found as a regulator, you actually have to do things that make people dislike you. You have to make decisions that are hard, and you get very vocal opposition that you have made a decision and people don't agree with it. And sometimes it is hard, in my experience, at least in a Canadian context, for an elected official to make those kind of decisions because they've spent their entire life trying to be popular so that they could win the next election. So with that, I think I stayed under the 10 minutes, which again, me staying on time and probably talking slow enough that the translator is keeping up is a rarity. I want to close by thanking everybody. It's a little bit late here, but not that late. And it looks like you guys are starting a really great day. And so far, I've really enjoyed all the presenters and the great conversation. And hopefully I get a chance to interact with this group again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, for that very interesting presentation. And obviously, I think for sure, one thing that everybody in our audience took out of it was the importance of certainty. And I think you made that very clear, but it's actually is the golden rule for investment worldwide is certainty for the investors, so they know that they can have enough time to generate the profits that they need to pay back their stakeholders. So thanks for that. Have a good evening. Our next speaker is Sultanat Kamisheva, the Deputy Director of the Department of Gas and Petro-Gas Chemical Industries of the Ministry of Energy of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Sultanat will present us with an overview of the development of petrochemical and gas chemical industries in Kazakhstan. Sultanat, please.
Уважаемые участники конференции,
Dear conference participants, on behalf of the Ministry of Energy of the Republic of Kazakhstan, allow me to welcome the participants of this working group meeting and to thank the organizers of the event for giving me the opportunity to participate in this discussion. So once again, hello. Kazakhstan, from the first days of its attainment of independence, has set the goal to attract investors into the economy of the country through constant improvement of its investment climate and creating favorable, unique conditions for investors, since attracting foreign direct investments plays a key role in the development of the state. Can you hear me, colleagues? Yes, we can hear you.
слайд 2.
Slide number 2. As a result, according to the rating of the World Bank Doing Business 2020, Kazakhstan is ranked 25th in the world on the ease of doing business. We should ensure the efficient use of our competitive advantages, which is a good geographical location, which provides to us the neighboring market with a huge number of consumers, and to develop our transport infrastructure. Apart from that, our country is a large producer of energy resources and a big supplier of those in a global market, and is ranked 12th globally on oil reserves and 22nd on natural gas reserves. Third slide. On the Kazakhstani territory, currently, we have 13 free economic zones, 4 of which are aimed at developing the chemical industry, the petrochemical industry, namely. The next slide. Can we go to the next one? Namely, we've created the special economic zone in the Atyrau region. Its territory is about 3,500 hectares, and it's divided into 2 parts. On one, we have large-scale petrochemical or manufacturers, polypropylene, polyethylene, and others. And on the other one, there's an industrial business park for SMEs, the activity of which is the production of end consumer products based on basic petrochemical raw materials. The government is funding the infrastructure for these because that helps reduce by 20% capex. And currently, at the special economic zone, we've built railway stations, automobile roads, electricity lines, a gas turbine power plant. Slide number 5, please. Moreover, we have the following government incentives, considering that one of the key issues is supply of raw materials. The legislation of Kazakhstan was amended in order to help provide liquefied natural gas to as a priority to manufacturers. And there's a mechanism of pricing for gas for projects that use it as a raw material. There is a tax and customs benefit in place. We have facilitated the simplified procedure attracting foreign labor, since there is a single window principle to consider applications. And that has helped reduce from 2 years to 3 months the consideration of applications. And using international standards when carrying out construction will also help projects save up to 10% of capital expenses. Next slide, please. Thanks to the measures of government support, currently we've ensured the production of aromatic hydrocarbons, mostly concentrated in the western region of Kazakhstan. Production of aromatics, benzol and paraxylol, polypropylene, fuel additives, and lubricants. And at the same time, at the different stages, we have projects on producing polyethylene, methanol, polyethylene terephthalate, butadiene, and rubber. Now, these projects are part of the national project of sustainable economic growth, which is aimed at increasing the prosperity and well-being of Kazakhstan. And it's been approved on October 12th, 2021, number 730 is the decree number, as part of which we'll be developing the petroleum and petrochemical industries. There's a goal of creating a petrochemical cluster and to increase the volumes of production. This document is in the information system of Kazakhstan. Next slide, please. So currently at this polypropylene plant, which the capacity of which is 500,000 tons per year. We are at the commissioning stage. We're expecting the first batch of products in the commissioning of the plant. The polyethylene project, 1 million tons per year. It's an anchor project. It's currently being designed, and the butadiene project is in its active stage. The implementation of these projects will help in attract investment, 11 billion US dollars totally, provide 12,000 people with jobs during construction and 1,500 jobs during operation. Next slide, please. Thank you. The launch of these main flagship projects at the special economic zones will create the foundation for the development of other petrochemical production facilities, and will become the first stage in creating in the western region of this petrochemical cluster. And will be based on the principle of comprehensive use of oil and gas resources, oil and gas production, oil and gas processing, and oil, petroleum, gas, and chemical. And the location of these facilities close to each other in close proximity will enable to integrate projects with each other, and using a single infrastructure will help save on logistics and help develop other industries as well. And this will create the circumstances to exchange knowledge, increase the competitive advantages of the cluster participants, to create new items in the value chain. And this will ensure a synergetic effect and will also help attract investment into science as well. Thank you for listening. This is it for my presentation. And to finalize, I'd like to note that the results of the working group, the suggestions and proposals will be important for the development of the industry, taking into account today's reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sultanat. Rahmat Sultanat. The final speaker of session 2 is Don Strew, President and CEO of Condor Energies. Condor has worked in Kazakhstan for more than 15 years, and during that period has invested more than $250 million in the country's economy. And Don will take us to one of the new initiatives for energy transition, and that's going to be LNG initiation in Kazakhstan.
Thanks, Norman. Not sure why you just didn't stay up here. You could do this easily as well as I could, but thanks for that. You can go to the first slide, please. Or can I do that here? I guess I can do that here. We're actually live. I'm like, yeah, I can. Good. Quick overview on what LNG actually is, just so everybody's on the same page. It's obviously a cryogenic fuel, and the basis is natural gas. The whole trick is you cool this stuff down to minus 162 degrees Celsius. And in a box that would normally hold a cubic meter of gas, you can fit 600 times in that little box. And so it becomes very, very efficient, especially when you're starting to deal with high horsepower engines. That's really a great application for LNG. On a weight basis, you get 20% more energy out of LNG than you do diesel. And you get about 2.5 times more than you would with compressed natural gas. So it's actually a pretty good fluid. It's safe and easy to transport, which is obviously very important in the world as we want to minimize our footprints. LNG is non-explosive, so it doesn't blow up. An issue we're still trying to figure out with hydrogen per se. It's non-corrosive and non-toxic. If it does disperse, it evaporates very quickly into the air. And so you don't get the spills that you would associate with, say, diesel oil. What's important to note? Sorry, guys. What's important to note is really the understanding of LNG. When people think about LNG, they think about large plants that can provide 10 million tons per annum. Those plants will cost billions of dollars, and they're throughout the world in North America. Australia also has some LNG facilities. And the one on top actually happens to be for a Chevron facility from West Australia. And a huge project, but also huge dollars. The approach that Condor is taking with LNG is to modularize it. And this is really starting to take off now in North America. There are a few modular plants even constructed in Russia. And so it's moving that way. But the whole intent is to bring the LNG to the user. With conventional plants, you'll have basically they're designed for shipping around the world. And you put them on the big tanks and you take it around where the end users are. Obviously, you need a huge infrastructure of the end users to then re-gasify the gas and then a distribution system to take it to the end users. So the idea with the modular plants is that you're bringing the LNG to where it's going to be needed, where it's going to be required, or as close to where it is as to where it's going to be required. So it limits the number of pipelines needed, and it's very easily transported by truck or by rail right now, and those are both being done in North America very successfully. As we've heard, Kazakhstan is already on the road to energy transition. Resolution 797, which came out a few years ago, is really focused on taking some of the Kazakhstan's natural gas and dedicating it more to LNG and CNG, just so that you can make that transition. And in fact, right now there's about 500 million cubic meters per year that have been identified for the transportation sectors. For our friends back in Canada, that equates to about 50 million a day of gas. So not a huge amount, but you have to start somewhere, and so they're starting there. But the intent is to gasify the country. More than 200 fueling stations will be required. It's interesting to note that LNG is heavily utilized in China for transportation of long haul trucks. LNG is heavily utilized in Europe for LNG for transportation by long haul trucks. There's zero in Kazakhstan. And so those trucks that come from either the Chinese border or the European border have to switch over to diesel haulers to bring that load that they're carrying through Kazakhstan. And so it's a gap definitely that the government's realized and wanting to fix. They're looking at up to 30,000 vehicles transitioned initially to LNG. Actually, Astana is looking currently at purchasing 200 buses that they'll run on LNG. And so that's supposed to happen within the next 18 months as they move towards that. Another big use, and we'll talk about uses in just a second, but another big use is in the locomotive industry. And there's a pilot study underway right now to convert some of Kazakhstan's existing diesel locomotives to LNG. And so big market here. I think what's important to realize is, Condor is one of many companies that's been involved or, getting involved with LNG. And the trick is to use ideas that have been proven elsewhere. The big benefit of LNG to Kazakhstan, obviously, is more environmentally friendly. You're dealing with 30% lower greenhouse gases and obviously 100% less on sulfur emissions. The facilities themselves are very small, so you don't have these large refineries that are generating diesel, and it supports the transition plan going forward. Demand obviously will be reduced in terms of what's required, and that's important right now. Kazakhstan has 3 refineries. They're actually not meeting the current diesel requirements. Diesel is being imported from neighboring countries or a neighboring country to the north, and that needs to hopefully be rectified. There has been talk for a number of years to build a 4th refinery in country, but that in itself is a multi-year project and a multi-year investment. And so if we can work to transition some of the diesel requirements or reduce the diesel requirements through LNG, I think it's a win for everybody. As I briefly mentioned, it's an industry that's it's been proven worldwide. So this is not the first place that would try LNG on vehicles, but it's heavily used in Europe and Asia for long haul transports. The mining industry in Canada, the mining industry in Mexico, the mining industry in Europe are all using LNG for trucks. Caterpillar has over 10 million hours of LNG use on just 2 of their models of heavy haul trucks. And so that is also very well proven. Locomotives are used routinely in the United States. Specifically, there's been some trials in Canada. Canadians have chosen to push more towards hydrogen, the rail operators, and so they're investigating that. But hydrogen is several years away from being able to transport economically transportation of trains. And talked already about standardizing the fuel between China and Western Europe. That's important. One other little benefit and it's actually a large benefit if you're a mine, you're seeing now that oil changes on mine haul trucks go from 500 hours to 1,500 hours running LNG, just because it's that much more less wear on the engine itself. And so there's a huge advantage to the mining companies, not only from utilizing LNG, which is cheaper than diesel, but also the wear and tear on their equipment. So that's something else that they're really focused on. In terms of Condor and where we're focused right now, our big one so far has been on the mining operations. And so there's obviously a number of mines in country. There's several thousand mine haul trucks. Conversion kits are provided by Caterpillar and other manufacturers. And so again, all the processes are currently in place to implement this. Condor's phase one of LNG for the mine haul trucks will actually reduce about the emissions of 65,000 cars on an annual basis. So it's a big number when you're looking at CO2 reduction to bring that down, to move that forward. Trucks actually are now running up to 85% diesel on the load portion. There's been a lot of studies done by Caterpillar and others on performance. You get, as I mentioned earlier, you get much more power out of the LNG than you would comparable diesel. And so it really is a win. There's one mine in Mexico that's converted their entire fleet of 55 trucks to LNG right now and working very well with that. As I mentioned earlier, it'll take care of the gap on the long haul trucks between the gap between China and between Asia and locomotives. Kazakhstan, Kazakh Jolie is quite interested in LNG for their locomotives, really because what they want to do is extend the range of their trains. Right now, that range is somewhere around the 800 kilometers. And with LNG, you can extend that range up to about 3,000 kilometers. And so there's a huge range gain that they're looking for. And again, with the power, you actually get better efficiencies. So that's moving forward. And where is forward? What are we doing right now? Well, Condor signed a number of MOUs with various entities in the government to push forward with this initiative. It's actually been designed strategic or designated strategic by the government of Kazakhstan. And so that's a positive for moving it forward. We're working right now to finalize agreements with the government in terms of feed gas supply. We're in discussions with a number of end users to start various pilots with the end users. We're looking at up to 6 these modular plant locations throughout Kazakhstan with the intent to, over the next 4 to 5 years, to service the mining industry, obviously the long haul trucks, the locomotives, and even marine vessels, because marine vessels, even in Canada right now, are running on LNG. And so another great opportunity for that to be done. We've actually completed the front end engineering on the first plant. This is actually a plant that's operating in the United States. And so we're not doing something that, again, hasn't been done before, but it too has been refined through our front end engineering process. And so got the engineering done. What we're really pleased with on our process is you require no external refrigerants. So you don't require ammonia, you don't require nitrogen, ethane or propane to cool the gas. It actually uses its own gas stream. There's a smart guy from the 1800s called Jules Thompson, and we're basically using those principles to cool the gas. But it's been successfully done, and so we're excited to do that. The modular design allows you to expand. So as your market increases, obviously, you can expand the plants that you're dealing with. So in a nutshell, because I told Norman I'd really try and stay at 10 minutes, and I think I'm talking a little faster than Mark was, but we've got a pretty strong translator in the back booth there. We're constructing the first facility or we're about to construct the first facility in Central Asia, and we're targeting Q4 2024 for gas to go forward. I think that can happen a little quicker because these LNG facilities actually take about 12 months to build. So a conventional facility that takes 5 to 6 years is taxing it at least with these modular plants. You can spit them out pretty quick. As I mentioned, up to 6 of those are planned for over the next 5 years, producing about 600,000 tons of LNG per year, and that's what our goal is right now. Obviously, more environmentally friendly. I presented at a UN ECE conference last fall, and it was really refreshing because people in Asia get it. They understand that you can't go from diesel to hydrogen. There's got to be a transition, and everybody really embraced that idea that it's going to take a little time, and in between there you need a transition fluid, and that's really what we see, the application of LNG in the country. It's been proven. It's got a track record. No safety incidents associated with it, but more importantly, it allows the operators to continue to run their equipment. Interesting, on the mines, you still have a diesel tank on the mine haul truck, and so if for whatever reason you need to switch back to pure diesel, you can do that. But what the operators have found is going up the hills, they get more energy, more power. The trucks can pull faster coming out of the pit, running on LNG than they can diesel. And of course, we've got a great technology. I'm sure everybody says they've got a great technology. This one is proven, and so we're looking forward to implementing it in Kazakhstan in the near future. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Don. A great initiative, we think, for this country, and we're hopeful that the barriers that we're still facing will soon be resolved, and then we can start moving forward with the next phase of our development. That brings to end session 2. Normally we would probably take a little break, but I think we have our viewing audience in Canada. It's getting very late, so we're just going to have to suck it up and push forward. And I guess starting session 3, the speakers will address environmental protection, clean technologies, and experience of Canadian companies in this sector. And I would like to invite Timur Amagjanov, to the podium well, I guess he's going to be not on the podium, but he's joining us live to provide his presentation on best available techniques in the oil and gas industry. Timur Beck is the head of the reference book on alternative technologies for the International Center of Green Technologies and Projects in Kazakhstan. Timur Beck.
Уважаемые коллеги,
Right, dear colleagues and dear organizers, thank you very much for this opportunity today to speak. We've had some very ample presentations and interesting ones already today. A lot on our schedule, and thank you very much for this opportunity to all the stakeholders to exchange experience and build bridges. Allow me to present today the topic of my presentation, best available technology in oil and gas. Today, I will present a small and at the same time very significant part of the activities of our company, the International Center for Green Technologies and Investment Projects. The main task of the center is the promotion of green technology and business support to increase the competitiveness of the economy, the quality of life of the population, and to reduce the negative impact on the environment. Another important task of the center is to support the transition of enterprises to the principles of best available technology in order to significantly reduce the level of environmental impact. The principles and mechanisms for the transition to best available techniques have been implemented in the most developed economies of the world. Currently, our code is focusing on experience of the countries of the OECD. And in the International Center, we've created a best available technology bureau. In order to implement the new environmental code, the National Bureau of Best Available Technologies was established on the basis of our center, and it is working on having the industries transition to these BATs. Today, the environmental agenda has become part of the economic policy of states and the processes of greening economies, decarbonization, and the reduction of the carbon footprint and the development of renewable energy are gaining momentum all over the world. Kazakhstan is no exception. Just like other states, our country is gradually developing in this direction. Speaking at the summit on climate ambition in 2020, our president, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, announced the achievement of carbon neutrality by Kazakhstan by 2060, as was already mentioned by our speakers before. These are no doubt ambitious plans for our country, since almost 70% of electricity production in Kazakhstan relies on coal, produced from coal. But today we're here to talk about oil and gas. So I will stick to the oil and gas industry. In 2021, a new environmental code was adopted, one of the important norms of which was the introduction of the best available technology. And in accordance with the experience of advanced countries, successful environmental impact management depends on effective interaction between the state, industry, and civil society, with the bridging role of the working body on best available technology. On this slide, you're seeing all of the constituent elements of our working body related to each task. So we have 5 interconnected departments, which is the working body, which is tasked with institutionalizing the working processes of the BAT, administrating the processes, monitoring, gathering information, building awareness, expanding the capabilities, monitoring policy assessment, and the industry plays a big role in this, because our international center, one of the tasks of implementing best available technologies is finding a balance between the economic part, the capabilities of the enterprise, and the goal on achieving environmental effectiveness. And of course, the state in this equation plays a big role, which is regulation, enforcement, and economic incentivization. Of course, all of our enterprises, the companies work closely. We work closely with a lot of companies, and I'll speak about that later. We are part of a large number of expert communities. So in each industry, we have these expert committees where we analyze things from an independent standpoint. So currently, at the BAT Bureau in Kazakhstan, we've developed 2 guidebooks. On this slide, we're seeing kind of a brief excerpt on the content of these reference documents of oil and gas processing. Currently in Kazakhstan, we have 5 large refineries more than 30 mini refineries. And for all of these companies, enterprises, these documents that we're developing, they will relate to them. So in the reference book, we have 85 best available technologies, which also include 150 techniques. Now, we were doing trials on these oil refineries of ours. One of the oil refineries did not pass the procedure of the complex audit. So this is all voluntary. They just didn't wish to do it. And at the 4 large oil refineries, the forecast we have is that if we implement the best available technology for each process, which we depict in the reference document, in the techniques that we use, if we implement it, then we will have a reduction by 4,880 tons of emissions. The forecasted reduction of all emissions compared to the current situation will be 68%. It's a considerable contribution that the BATs can make, which are one of the global trends all over the world right now. On the right, we are seeing one of the potential but already implemented also best available technologies that has already been implemented at some of the oil refineries. In this case, we're seeing an automated installation of clock filling, and this will reduce pollution down to 0. In terms of kerosene, statistics shows that the percent from 96% will be reduced to 0.56. Moreover, we also have an economic part to this. So energy efficiency in this case, what you see in the left bottom corner, there will be a reduction of payments of penalty fees for emissions will be reduced from 721,000 tenge to 29,000 tenge. So for the enterprise, this is also one of the key indicators of just one of these best available technologies. So colleagues, let me present to you the second reference book, which is being developed right now in Kazakhstan. It is going through the procedure of gathering opinions from the technical working group. It's on oil and gas production, which will be used for enterprises that carry out extraction at our oil fields. Currently, the production of oil and gas in Kazakhstan is done by more than 100 companies. And in this reference book, we have 121 independent techniques, best available techniques or technologies, which were grouped currently. The most the biggest example of emissions into the atmosphere is flaring systems and flaring, which is why in this reference book, we suggest to not use open flares, but closed flares and many other techniques we have in this guidebook. In terms of capture and storage of carbons, this technique is also popular. It's used at many enterprises based on experience of the US and China in Norway, in the United Arab Emirates, we are seeing that the carbon capture in these countries, they've already commercialized it, which is on a commercial basis. These enterprises, the ones that make the most emissions, they organize this, or they arrange this carbon capture process, and then further on, they use it, they utilize it either to increase their performance, but you can get acquainted with the information from these guidebooks later as a result of the discussion, which is being finalized currently. Allow me to move on to the next one. So currently, we have a very big contribution for international cooperation. Considering that we're borrowing the best practices from other countries, we are also attracting international experts. And the strategic goal of the center is to promote the transition of the industry to the principles of VAT in accordance with the best practices of the OECD countries, the EU, Russia, and other countries. And our center, International Center, is a member of the OECD expert group on best available technologies. We have agreements on joint activities that we've concluded with the BAT Bureau of Russia and Belarus. And in this regard, the center pays special attention to international cooperation. And the main areas of international activity are cooperation with key organizations in the field of best available technologies for the exchange of experience and knowledge, the attraction of grants and technical assistance, as well as participation in the implementation and management of major national and international climate and environmental projects. The promotion of all international initiatives takes place in close connection with the Green Bridge Partnership Program, which forms the institutional basis for long-term cooperation with partner countries and their relevant government agencies and organizations to attract green investments and technologies. The center today, our bureau actively cooperates with such large international organizations as the UNDP, the OSCE, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, UNIDO, the UN specialized organization, the mission of which is to speed up sustainable development and industrial development in its member states, and also to promote international cooperation. The Green Climate Fund, UNEP, the UN Program on the Environment. We also contact closely the financial institutions on obtaining grants, technical and financial assistance to promote green initiatives with such organizations as the World Bank, the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, the Asian Development Bank. On the platform, well, colleagues, apart from the fact that we're developing these handbooks or guidebooks, currently we're also carrying out such functional tasks as we are getting international experience on converting to best available practices. We have international partnerships and other things. And as of today, we are closely tied with scientific research institutes. On this slide, we're seeing major companies that we have ties with. So after today's conference, we hope that we will also have cooperation with you. So at that, allow me to thank you very much. Wishing you all the success and mutually beneficial cooperation. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Timmerbeck. And I agree that one of the things that we need to look to is see what we can do between Canada and Kazakhstan with your organization, who seems to be making very big strides in developing these handbooks for companies that so they can play a role in energy transition and reduce of harmful emissions. So thank you very much for explaining all that's going on in Kazakhstan, and much appreciated. And our next speaker is Darcy Spada, the Managing Director of Carbon Connect International. Darcy has more than 33 years of experience in heavy oil, conventional oil, and unconventional gas, and is the former international president of the Society of Petroleum Engineers. Darcy will outline the requirements for Kazakhstan to achieve oil and gas methane partnership 2.0 level today. Thanks, Darcy.
Thank you, Norman. Pleased to be here virtually. I'm just going to get my sharing going here. So we've got that ready. And have some very good, oh, I'm not sure if we're sharing. Are we seeing a nice big picture there? Yep. Pleased to be speaking to you. I hear some very good memories of a couple of years back at Satbeev University with some of the brilliant students that were there, and also from the Kazakh National Technical University, and my good friend Murat Sizdikov, who's now with Atra Oil and Gas University. So very fond memories of my visits to Kazakhstan as SPE president. I'm going to try and talk in short order about the OGMP 2.0 reporting levels. That introduction was quick. My slide deck is quick, but by no means is this process quick. hate to put it that way. However, it can be started very easily, and some good work towards level 5, even level 3 can be done quite rapidly. So here's the levels, and this is right out of the OGMP reporting framework. It's all available in the public domain. Why this is relevant to Canada and to Alberta is the Alberta system, as Mark referred to, is very successful without calling it OGMP levels, at being at the level 3 or level 4, or even in some cases the level 5. So it's very achievable in jurisdictions. Level 1 and 2 are more just an inventory, or having a database of wells and codes that identify unique wells. If you're in a royalty collecting structure, it's usually pretty easy. That corresponds to the royalty points. If you're in a production sharing agreement, it might be a little less easy because not every single transfer point is identified as thoroughly. But I think the easiest way to characterize this slide is just level 3 is when you start getting into the direct measurements by source type. Level 1 and 2 is more of an inventory by facility, and level 4 and 5 are seriously inventoried items and continuous monitoring when you get to level 5. So that's easy, perhaps inaccurate way of characterizing the levels. So we'll start with that detail, and I don't have any problem with you passing these slides around to your group afterwards. There's a lot of material there. OGMP has made it quite straightforward when you get into it, and I have looked at the Kazakh example. There's a number of operating companies. The government would play a little bit of a role here. your NDCs, your nationally determined contributions are set so that the goal is very clear. And to start down the OGMP path, it's filing the plan is the start. And so it's a very straightforward scoring mechanism. Performance targets are outlined quite clearly in the OGMP protocol. You can see 45% reductions over multiple years, 60 to 75% reduction by 2030, and ultimately a near zero emission intensity. The milestones are very well laid out, and the OGMP 2.0 also has good technical guidance documents. So some of the list on the right-hand side of the screen there is things we use all the time. Centrifugal compressors, efficiency of your flare stack, lit being one of them, glycoldehydes, incomplete combustion, storage tanks, estimated technical guidance documents. So it's all very clear, but it is a bit large, and we are in the space that specializes in this sort of gap analysis or helping companies get to OGMP 2.0 status or level status. Now, most of the operating companies are partnered in Kazakhstan, are members of OGMP 2.0. So all the big companies named earlier presentations, they're all part of the group globally that set these standards. So having so many joint venture companies such as DNI and Total and ExxonMobil and whatnot, Chevron, this helps because most of those companies are members. I'm going to jump into the Alberta example because it's easy to follow. Mario referred to the large emitter royalty and or levy. And basically, the Alberta government, through some of the policy that Mark has talked about over 15 years, has a very well-working system of tax. And it goes into a fund under the current government called the Tier Fund, which is basically set aside by large emitters or opted-in emitters, and it's spent in implementation of methane reduction programs. So it works very simply. Once you accept a taxation situation, I mean, people have to put money into the pot, whether it's an international financial institution, IFI, like an Asia Development Bank, or a country or a jurisdiction, or the companies, or however your production sharing agreement works. Money is in the pot. And then as you do these various things, you can subsidize it, you can use carbon credits. But what we call BQI overlays very nicely with the OGMP 2.0 alignment. So to start with, you have to have some sort of a baseline. And this at the source level, a baseline is in the level 3 range. So in Alberta, I'm going to get to some examples of programs that were run in Alberta with a baseline and then an implementation of solutions. This all falls very nicely. You can see it on the far left side, the baseline, the quantification, and the implementation. This all falls very nicely into the OGMP 2.0. So I guess the bottom line here is it's been done before in other places, maybe called other things, but it falls nicely into the OGMP alignment. And you can see in the middle of there in the diagnosis, calibration, and reporting part, level 1 and 2 are more site level. Level 3, 4, and 5 are source measurement. And so the trick is getting a relatively strong baseline and getting that set in stone, and then you can do monitoring from satellite. You can do monitoring from the top down, from airplane, from satellite, from drones, from fence mounted systems. So it's fairly detailed, but I'm going to jump into some actuals. In the province of Alberta, we've managed about $40 million Canadian of projects for this tier fund, which is the large emitter tax redeployed back into emissions reduction. And we've focused on leak detection, pneumatic devices, which there are a lot of, injecting usually chemical like methanol to not have lines freeze, casing and annulus vents, compressor vents, and tank vents. Those are the 5 big areas we looked at, and all this has to have good data management. So just a quick snapshot on the technology that has been implemented to reduce methane emissions, and it's absolutely translatable right into the tonnage numbers. These are all the typical devices that are over the shelf that we can do. And oddly enough, they're also efficiency, because sales gas left in the line is sold. And things that were brilliant years ago that we put in, like pneumatics, release a lot of sales gas into the atmosphere. So we become more efficient as well when these implementation of reduction methods are deployed. The baseline that was conducted in Alberta, the program is called BROA, Baseline Reduction Opportunity Assessment. So far in the 2 years that it's been running, it was about a $12 million US program at 80% funding to oil companies. And remember, this is from a carbon levy of large emitters. Out of that fund, we've now got 100% program completion. 110 producers participated. 20 service providers were doing the field measurement work for an average project cost of $47,000. 18,000 facilities and counting have been identified and a baseline measured, a real level 3 OGMP baseline. This, your government can go to the UN with their NDCs and say, here's what we've done, here's what we've surveyed, here's where we have a baseline. From that, your plans become much more concrete. What I'm very proud of that we've done in the province of Alberta is an additional $20 million US was deployed in about 80 projects. And so far in the 2.5 years that this has been running, we have saved 15.4 million tons lifetime GHG CO2 tons of CO2 equivalent. Now, if you look at some of the big CCUS projects that have cost billions, that number is similar to this as far as tons removed. So these are everyday. These are the categories I showed 3 slides back. These are everyday things that you can do after you've done your baseline and you've quantified what are the quick hits economically, you found the gaps, and you can quickly add up these large tonnage numbers that go report directly to government and up to the UN. So I'm very happy with the progress that we've had in Alberta. I know that in Kazakhstan, the same can be done. I've been working with the person I referred to earlier, Murat Sizdikov, who's now at Patra Oil and Gas University. We looked at some options to use some local content from his university and probably from Satpayev and some of the other schools to have local in content people doing all of the groundwork and figuring this out very quickly. It's not difficult. It is just following the guidelines. So with that, I've just quickly dumped the OGMP levels and how it can be done and some real numbers from where it's been done elsewhere in Alberta. So with that, I'd say thank you, and we'll turn it back over to Norman.
Thank you, Darcy, and interesting conversation and topics. And I think just want to say to you, if you need any help with introducing this initiative more thoroughly in Kazakhstan, please reach out to me, and we can try and set up some discussions and some meetings, because I think this is something that could be very beneficial for the government, for the country, in their reporting to international bodies of their efforts to try and reduce this methane emission stuff. So please let me know if there's anything we can do to help.
Thank you.
I would now like to invite Daryl Nelson, the Chief Executive Officer of Nelson Environment, to give us a presentation on the applications of thermal absorption technologies. Daryl and his company have more than 30 years of experience in the remediation of contaminated soils and have worked all over the world on large-scale remediation projects. Please, Daryl.
Good morning, Kazakhstan. Hopefully people can see my screen. There, am I clear? Does everybody hear me? Very good. Nelson Environmental Group is celebrating 30 years. Our background, my family's background through the 60s until the 90s involved construction and reclamation work for government and oil industry in Western Canada. In 1992, our province of Alberta brought in its contaminated site legislation under our Environmental Protection and Enhancement Act. Most of Canada was bringing in its contaminated sites legislation at that time. We recognized an opportunity to play a role in the developing environmental industry, and we acquired thermal desorption technology. And our company has a basket of services. In addition to our thermal treatment systems, we perform earthworks and demolition work. We do some in situ remediation, and we provide some other services. But today's talk is about our flagship offering, our thermal desorption systems. Now, part of the theme earlier involved the words certainty and best available technologies. Our thermal desorption technology delivers exactly that. Our slogan is clean dirt, no doubt, a statement of certainty that when our technology is deployed, our clients receive the results that they're looking for in the course of remediating contaminated soil or oily waste streams, such as drilling muds or sludge. Our key points are safe, predictable results after our now nearly 30 years of experience. We have ISO 14034 accreditation under the Canadian federal government ETV certification program, that's environmental technology verification. We deliver value at a competitive cost to remediate organic contamination from soil of all types in all conditions and climates. We have mobile on-site equipment, recycling soil for beneficial reuse. The quality of our treated soil shocks our clients. There's terrible misconceptions in the industry about the quality of soil after thermal treatments, and we've worked hard to dispel those misconceptions. But at the end of the day, why does the environmental industry exist? Because of liability management. All environmental practitioners ultimately are providing liability management. In our case, we remediate soil to a criteria agreed upon with our clients. And in the course of that, we extract organic contaminant and achieve better than a 99.99% destruction of the extracted organics, or in some cases, we recover those compounds. Our equipment is very mobile. We are gypsies. We go to wherever the problem is. We've worked across many jurisdictions in various areas. So our mobile equipment is built to design to be able to be mobilized to almost any site anywhere in the world. We put equipment throughout North America. We've been across the Pacific to Hawaii and American Samoa. We put equipment in Europe. We put equipment in Africa. We are built to go to where the problem is. When we arrive on site, our systems will take 1 to 3 weeks to set up and assemble and be operational, depending on a number of factors. I look at thermal desorption as 4 processes that we'll go through in the next 4 slides. The first one is the excavation of the contaminated soil. Soil must be excavated and prepared properly. We work to homogenize the material, remove rock and debris, and the material's then ready for the thermal process. The second phase of thermal processing, after we've excavated and prepared the soil, is we feed the contaminated soil. A loader on the left is placing contaminated soil into a hopper. The hopper meters soil onto a waste scale belt that moves the soil up into the rotary kiln system. This is a direct fired counterflow system, meaning that solids travel from left to right through the rotary kiln, while the hot combustion gases travel from right to left, heating the soil to the point where we vaporize the compounds under negative air pressure. This is not incineration. This is evaporative extraction, the fundamental difference. Many people assume a thermal desorber is an incinerator when that's not the case. What we're doing is elevating the temperature to exceed the boiling points of the compounds in a low oxygen environment, allowing us to physically separate the organic contaminants from the solids. As the soil passes through the system, it will reach its final discharge temperature. Temperatures anywhere from 200 to 500 centigrade are required to achieve the extraction of organic compounds. The clean hot soil is then discharged into a cooling quench system that cools the soil with water, brings moisture content back into the soil. And the clean soil is discharged where a separate soil handling machine moves that processed soil away. Our systems are flexible on our fuel source. Natural gas, of course, is the preferred. We can operate with propane, butane, heating oil, etc. We have an electrical requirement for the system and a water requirement only for our cooling and our hydration of the soil. We operate at production rates anywhere from 15 to 60 plus tons per hour, depending on which of our systems is employed and the nature of the material that we're treating. Going to the last part of the process, the contaminated soil in this picture, lower right, is being fed into the rotary kiln. And again, this is counterflow. So solids travel one direction, hot combustion, gases travel the opposite. And just above where the contaminated soil goes into the kiln, the vapors are drafted out through a cyclone to collect a good deal of the particulate, but more importantly, the gases flow through a baghouse system that captures the vast majority of the dust particulate, and that dust is then returned to the soil stream, while the vapors then go on to a secondary oxidation chamber. Now we bring the temperature up to typically 870 degrees centigrade. We can go higher if need be, but that's typically the temperature by which destruction is occurring. We're adding oxygen now at this point. The contaminant forms part of the fuel source. We have the benefit that when contamination levels are in the higher range of our soils, we actually have a reduction in our fuel consumption because that contaminant forms part of the fuel requirement, achieving the minimum temperatures we need to achieve the 4 nines destruction efficiency. That's thermal desorption in a short run through for the 4 processes of preparing soil, separating the organic compounds from the solids, capturing the particulate from the gas stream, and then destroying the organic compounds through thermal oxidation. The treated soil has a quality that shocks people. We do a lot of work where we're restoring agricultural lands and natural forested areas. These soils support vegetation extremely well. It's a common misconception that thermally treated soil must not be able to support vegetation, when we find the opposite is true. These pictures in the lower right are from a crude oil cleanup in prairies, North Dakota. On the right is the native soil growing durum wheat, a study done by North Dakota State University. The 3 plants in the middle are mixtures of the native soil and the thermally desorbed soil. And on the left is a picture of durum wheat growing in pure thermally treated soil in 3 or 4 weeks after the processing, shortly afterwards. We have find at times that we enhance the ability of soil to support vegetation due to the fact that we increase the surface area of the soil and make available nutrients otherwise bound up in the structure of the soil. So there's this very counterintuitive aspect of thermal desorption that we can enhance the ability of the soil to support vegetation following treatment. In these pictures, we see the top left corner, the soils are relatively unchanged in color, dealing with diesel and lighter chain hydrocarbons. The upper right corner, when we're dealing with flare pit material and very heavy oil compounds, as we have in much of Alberta, we get some residual carbon in the soil. The soil is not contaminated, but it's darkened from the residual carbon left, which actually supports the growing medium. Also important with thermally treated soil is the geotechnical engineering aspects of it. Our soils are very homogenized. The rock and debris has been removed. We can tailor the moisture content so that the soil will compact nicely when it is returned to its location, or if the client decides to use it for a construction purpose. These soils have proven very well for brownfield redevelopment, for pipeline clients who are looking for optimum soil to go back in the pipeline bed after a pipeline repair, or other purposes where further development may occur on the site. These soils lend themselves to that subsequent land use almost no matter what that site is. The thermally treated soils are very suitable for that site restitution. We are masters of remote, harsh operations. Growing this company in Western Canada and in Alberta in particular, the height of our oil and gas season, especially in our northern areas, often can only occur during the winter when we have frozen access to get in and out of our northern locations. So in these pictures, we show the lower right-hand corner, we're operating in southern Alberta at a temperature of about -10. The pictures at the top are operating at -15, -20 centigrade. We see the water, the moisture content in our stack emission freezing as it hits atmosphere. We're simply returning water to the environment, in this case, forming ice crystals or making snow. This is not smoke or dust. The picture in the lower left is processing drilling muds in our far northern Arctic in the Beaufort Sea in February at -50, -50 centigrade. We believe it's the coldest application that thermal desorption's ever been delivered under. We've learned how to make the cold weather our ally, and we routinely work through winter nights here of -40, take advantage of the cold weather. There are some aspects of it that actually improve some of the material handling capacities of the soil and the way the systems perform. It is a very cold weather friendly technology, which is very counterintuitive what most people think of thermal treatment. Our projects have taken us across many time zones. So in the lower right corner, we see working in the Arctic again at that cold extreme. Top right picture is southern Alberta working in the foothills, cleaning up an old oil well. Top center is setting up on a site in the north of Spain. Top left is working near the Arctic Circle in the summertime. The oil field of Norman Wells, just south of the Arctic Circle, up the Mackenzie River. We went in and out on barges to service that project. And the lower left project, after we worked in the Arctic, we had the blessing of going to Honolulu to clean up a brownfield redevelopment site from a 100-year-old fuel storage facility. So we can be a good urban neighbor as well as a remote operation. This picture in the lower left, one of the things I like about it is it shows how clean our stack emission is. We operate with virtually zero opacity. There's no smoke or dust visible up our stack. We will see the condensation, the steam created from the cooling of the hot soil, even in warm weather. But in warm weather, there's nothing visible out of our stack, whereas in the cold weather, we have that those ice crystals forming. Now, the application of that direct fired thermal desorption technology is usually applied when we have contaminant loading in the soils or the oily waste stream around 5% hydrocarbon loading or less. We now see a lot of markets developing around the world, and in often cases, very high oil content sludge. Years of oil production and the legacy created, these sludges often 10, 20, 30, 40% oil or more. So for this matrix, there's too much hydrocarbon content for the direct fired systems. We would have over temperaturing of the system with this high energy loading. And in order to process these high oil content materials, we have built and commissioned an indirect thermal desorption system. With the indirect system, rotary kilns are employed, but the exterior skin of the rotary kiln is heated within refractory line chambers. And this allows us to gasify the organic compounds without the combustion gas of the heating source mixed in with them. This allows for a small volume but highly concentrated organic vapor stream to be drafted from the kilns, cooled, condensed, and recovered. We're recapturing a majority of the oil removed from the sludge. These are water cooling towers that provide the energy exchange to condense and recover the product. And then the vapors still go through an oxidation chamber for a polish, as there may be some small fraction that does not condense in the course of it. Between the two technologies, we can target almost any organic contaminant in almost any inorganic matrix. And with these mobile systems, we can deliver them to wherever these projects may be in the world. We have a utility input, of course, to be concerned about in order to operate the systems. But outside of that, the equipment and personnel can be sent almost anywhere to deliver this service that we provide on a fee for performance basis for our clients as we deliver clean dirt. No doubt that statement of certainty with this technology delivers in the clean tech realm that's developing. It's been great talking with you. Appreciate the opportunity to do this presentation and look forward to any further discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daryl, and very interesting technology. And it's interesting to see that there's no place where you can't go. And why don't you come to Kazakhstan? So
I want to. I very much so. I look forward to traveling to Kazakhstan.
Okay. Well, let's stay in touch and let's see what we can do here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Askar Yemontayev, the Managing Director of the Environmental Regulation for Kaz Energy Association. Kaz Energy has been active in Kazakhstan for more than 15 years and promotes sustainable development in the oil and gas energy complexes of Kazakhstan for its members. And we're very happy that you're here live.
My slide is are on Russian, but I will speak on English. We'll talk. And good day, all. And I'm very happy, I'm very glad to be here on 5th Kazakhstan Canadian Business Council and talk on behalf of Kaz Energy Association. So let me start with a short overview of on ESG in world oil and gas industry. Then we'll touch ESG status on Kazakhstan, what's happening, and just finally we'll just prognose or we'll dedicate what's the future, near future of gas and oil industry. And yes, there is a ESG trend, ESG values trend in the world, which already changes corporations management, taking into account climate agenda and sustainable development principles. So as per UNDP data, there is a we can see that last 10 years is assets of for ESG and sustainable development of companies is increased 5 times, and now last year it was $120 billion. And international energy market also transforming, focusing decarbonization and sustainable development principles. And as per International Energy Agency data, the global investments into upstream oil and gas upstream reduced. So we can say that last year it was about $400 billion, but as you can see, between 14-16, it was 2 times more. I mean that investments to oil and gas industry, development of oil and gas, so it's reducing. And in this ESG is changing, as I said, some corporations and companies, big companies, approaches and standards. And here in this slide, we can see that main big international companies already announced their decisions, their goals to reduce greenhouse gases and to go forward to the zero emissions. And capex of all big international and national oil companies is for increasing and for implementation of renewable energy sources is increased. And you can see that last year in 2021, this oil and gas companies increased their renewable energies input, and biggest one you can see it's offshore wind energy, which about 2.5 billion, and about more than 1 billion it's in solar energy, and etc. So it's you can see that all companies already changed their strategies and started to invest in the renewables. And here yes, there is some list of big companies, oil and gas companies, and their goals and their measures they already started or planned to do in terms of reducing of emissions, in terms of generation of renewables, and generation of green hydrogen. So it's already, this work already started, and it's we can see there is a trend to increase more renewables and clean energy. And this about ESG activity in Kazakhstan. And actually, yes, we understand ESG as a activity with compliance development with focus on environment, work with society, and managing standards of organization governance. So yes, there is some different ESG standards. A main one, of course, it's United Nations goals, Sustainable Development Goals, also GRI, CSASB, and others. And as per Economy Institute of Economy Research Institute of Kazakhstan, and big activity already in Kazakhstan, and company, big company, oil and gas company already in Kazakhstan, working in Kazakhstan, national and international, already changing or now developing new strategies in terms of actions towards of clean energy. And also this main document, strategical document, as you know, and already it was said on this meeting, it's that strategy for decarbonization strategy, we could say, up to 2060 is will be finished this year, and now it's on final development. And also in Kazakhstan, you can see already this established some national ESG club with signed 19 big companies, and also in Kazakhstan market, it was implemented 3 emissions of green, I would say, certificates, yeah, for more than 34 million tenge. So is this you know, this green certificates for environment direction, development investments, and for with society development and others. So it's already Kazakhstan banks already working, and finance, International Finance Center Astana. No, as I said, or some ESG development already. It's new for Kazakhstan. Despite in the world, it's already almost 20 years. ESG trends, principles is already developing, but in Kazakhstan it's quite new. But despite this, Kazakhstan companies, oil and gas companies, we could focus on that one, but not only, already working on different projects for development of ESG principles. And as I can say, the main part of ESG process, it's assessment. So yes, in Kazakhstan, the PwC, Pricewaterhouse company, already done conducted two ESG information ratings, and there is some list of top 9 companies within 15th. So first place is in 2020 and 2021. It's for Kazmunaygas KMG company. Second is Kazatomprom. Third one also oil company Kaztrans-Oil. And fourth is Kigok Energy Company. So it means that this rating shows that these companies already doing a lot of activities in terms of ESG and sustainable development. This information from open sources, this which used for these ratings, it's gathered and analyzed from the open sources, and from this from all these companies' annual sustainable development reports. So all aspects like society, environment protection, governance, it's already covered on this in these reports. As I said, so there is a KASE in Kazakhstan, and also funds, different funds working and developing, planning to develop and improve methodology for this activity, ESG activity. There is only one, not only one, but there is some weak point of that there is no all these different standards is not fixed, and some companies cannot understand which standards should be used and which methodology, and how this ESG implementation will affect mainly on economics and improvement of, for example, society activity. So I think that this will come later when some maybe Kazakhstan will establish some not like rules, but will synchronize all this international experience on ESG, and will make some clear and effective standards in Kazakhstan, ESG standards. Finally, I want just to say that there is a list of renewables, which of course it's solar, wind energy, carbon capture and storage, hydro electro energy, bioenergy, hydrogen, with in Kazakhstan it could be green and blue, geothermal energy, and energy of offshore energy. And also this list includes gas, natural gas, and nuclear energy. And there is some figures for oil and gas industry. For example, in 2021, in total, 85.9 million tons of oil was produced. Among them, a big producer is TCO, Kashagan project, KPO, and others. And exported from this amount, 67.6 was exported in 2021, and there was a plan for export in 2022. It's for 87.5. So we can see that slight increase of oil production and export plan for this year. And regarding gas in 2021, there was produced 53.8 billions of meter cubic of gas, and among them exported 7.2, but total produced 29.4. So for 20 plan for 20 this year, it was 54.5 and export 5 billion meter cubic. So we can see that there is some slight reduction of export amount of gas, which could relate to necessity of increase gas use in Kazakhstan. And there is some plans, maybe long-term plans. And as we started from an international overview of ESG and moving towards renewables. So Kazakhstan also, there is some prognosis, long-term plans to increase among Kazakhstan oil companies to increase renewables. And so this will give some different pluses opportunities. So if Kazakhstan companies will increase on their assets renewables and will use renewable energy, it means more gas will be released for use in Kazakhstan. By I mean that by people use in Kazakhstan. So there is a plan in 2025 and 2030 to release to market, Kazakhstan market, more than 2 billions of gas using in their assets renewables. So it means that more gas for Kazakhstan, more gas. And also additional plus, it's there is a plan to implement additional projects, renewables projects. So for 4 to 5 billions of cubic meters, kilobytes, and which increase balance of V in Kazakhstan for 30 and 15% to the prognosis. So, and this will also help Kazakhstan itself to reduce their plants green gas. So there is also big pluses for nature users, for oil and companies, such as they will reduce their greenhouse gases, and also it will economically affect to this, because this companies will pay less for environmental payments. And also we have, as a KazEnergy, we have and as a supporting Ministry of Energy, we have some our proposals to support this activity moving towards to renewables. Support from government is required, financial investments and others. So thank you very much. Sorry, my English.
Thank you, Askar. That was a very detailed report that you provided to us, and it's good to see some of the things that are going on in Kazakhstan related to ESG. I'd now like to invite Miroslav Gojak, the Director of Black Powder Solutions, to give his presentation on magnetic separator technology, a game changer. Miroslav and Black Powder have successfully implemented several projects in the region and regularly participate in CEC trade missions to Central Asia. Miroslav, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say hello to everybody. I'm very sorry that I cannot be with you there today because last week I was COVID positive, so I'm still have to be in isolation, so I cannot travel. Otherwise, I will be there with you. For the last couple of years, I'm regularly present on all the trade missions and all the events organized, and I traveled a lot around Kazakhstan, presenting the equipment and installing the equipment and doing all sorts of projects. I was thinking how to do this presentation best to actually show you that we are and how we are the game changer, especially in ecological side, and of course in the side of the efficiency of our equipment. I will shortly show you two movies, two short videos. So this is the first one, just to show you how our equipment works, basically to know what we are talking about. We developed a special technology that captures particles from submicron level to large particles with the efficiency rate of 95+%. We are the only technology which can deal with oil and gas as well, because we do not have any electrical parts. We only have permanent magnetic fields. This is one of our gas separators in the transparent housing. So you can see instantly when you put any kind of fluid, gas, oil, hydraulics, it catches the particles immediately without the flow restriction. Instantly it catches it. We have 3 types of cleaning system. We have manual cleaning system, semi-automatic cleaning system, and automatic cleaning system. As you can see, there are no replaceable filters. Everything what we filter, we remove from the liquid or fluid, and it's only particles. We do not have we do not have replacement filters. Let's see how it looks in practice on actual oil field. So when you put it on the actual oil field, on the actual pipeline, this is how it looks. So could you imagine how many filters would you plug with all this contamination? And it's all captured on our magnetic filter separators that works on special patented technology. So all this captured contamination, and which sizes under the 1 micron level sizes, you remove without any spare parts. So you just clean the filter that you put out. Sorry, just to start the presentation. So our technology is a special patented technology that we developed in Canada that works on the permanent magnetic field. So I'm repeating again, there is no electricity. It has an enormous strength, our magnetic fields. For example, 2-inch diameter magnetic filter rod holds 960 kilograms in the diameter of 8 centimeters from the rod. It's an enormous strength. That means every metal and non-metal particle which is bind together with metal particle cannot pass next to our separator without being caught. It's very, very, very efficient technology. And the second thing, this technology this is the most ecological technology that you can find in the world currently. First of all, there are no replacement parts. As you can see here, for example, one of our separators with the capture contamination on the right side, and on the left side, you can see the amount of standard filters, which are, by the way, inefficient, you would have to use to filter this. It's an enormous, and not to mention that all those filters on the left are thrown away in the landfill. So it makes no sense. It's environmentally absolutely unfriendly to have this standard filtration, and not to mention that the efficiency of standard filters are 20, 30 microns, 40 microns, and our filters filter under 1 micron level. What are the actual benefits? So it extends the asset lifetime. It extends the maintenance intervals by 2 to 3 times. It improves the product quality. For example, a final product with gas, oil. If you have, for example, gas engines and you have problem with the dirty gas, you can use it. We'll definitely clean it. Not to mention that our filters, once installed, they do not have any replacement parts. They do not have replacement cartridges. The operational life is 18 plus years. In this period, you just clean them. From the efficiency point of view, unbelievable. But from environmental point of view, it's even more, because you will reduce the amount of oil waste by 98%, because you just clean actual dirt from the hydrocarbon fluids and gases. You do not throw away some metal housing with so-called filter inside in the landfill. It definitely reduces the energy consumption. It minimalizes consumables. Kazakhstan is a big country. I've spent there a lot of time. I travel all around. And it's very difficult to move from one side to another, especially in the winter time. And you need to have a full storages of consumables, replacement filters and everything. And it's logistically very demanding. Not to mention ecological footprint. I mean, to move all these consumables and all these spare parts, I mean, you spend fuel, you spend hydrocarbon fuel, because you need to move all this equipment. With our installation of our separation and filtration technology, you minimize this. You actually do not have the replacement parts and the consumables. So it really is a game changer. It requires the initial investments, yes, but it pays back very fast. I will show you later in the table. Its application can be, we use it a lot in the mining industry to filter the hydraulic oil, engine oil, gearbox oil, and things like this. In oil and gas, in condensate, LNG, LPG, refined products. In natural gas compressor stations, we can significantly improve the life, prolong the lifetime, definitely decrease the amount of maintenance, and not to mention the ecological part of where you actually do not have the replacement filters. You just clean the one that we deliver you. Of course, in the refineries, there is an enormous improvement that we can do with using of our technology. Our company exists for 25 years already, and most of our clients are in North and South America. Now I slowly implement it in Europe and on Kazakhstan market. So, and we are currently involved in some projects with the nuclear power plants, because the safety and the quality filtration of the security engines, Hawaiian engines are, it's very, very important, and we can definitely offer this. So we are now in the testing phase. What I was telling you, the initial investment is required to have such a technology. It is initially more expensive than the standard filtration, but it's much, much more efficient, and the return rate for the initial investment is very quick. If you look at just the financial return, it's very quick. If we look at the ecological footprint and effect on the ecology and on the environment, then the return rate is, I cannot even calculate how much it will be. So definitely we are open to start and to do more projects in Kazakhstan, because Kazakhstan has a lot of energy. Kazakhstan has a lot of mines. Kazakhstan has a lot of oil and gas fields. If we can together improve the efficiency, if we can together work on the environmental issues, we can definitely do a lot. So basically, I will not, due to the small time slot, I will not now bother you all with the hundreds of examples, because we have hundreds and hundreds of case studies around the world. It would be best the organizer have my contact, so you can get it, and we can definitely go case by case. And if you have any, and I know that you do have the potential places for installations, we can do a lot of projects. We can start projects. We even have partners in Kazakhstan who are helping us with installations. We also produce and will produce the parts, meaning the housings and all the welded structures and the housings of our filters, corpuses in Kazakhstan. So helping also the local economy and do our share of localization, and to help Kazakhstan also in this way. So I think that we can together achieve a lot. I will not take too much of your time. So this is just some of our clients. This presentation is also available in Russian, so you can get it. Если вы хотите, я тоже понимаю.
I understand Russian too. We can speak Russian. This presentation was in English, but if you wish, we can also speak Russian.
Say hello to everybody, and I hope to see each other soon in the very near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miroslav. It was it's a great product, and we can tell you that when we initiate the construction of our facility, we're going to have one of these filtration systems in our plant in Kazakhstan. All of our plants in Kazakhstan, we believe very much in this technology and this product, and we thank you for bringing it to everybody's attention today. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
And hope we see you soon again here.
Yeah, I also hope, if I would not be sick, I will be there for sure.
Yeah, get well soon. Our final speaker today has graced us with his presence. And he's been on a long journey to get here. So John Little, the account manager for the well-known Canadian company Master Flow Valve Company. And I guess John's topic is going to be the employment of smart technology to reduce flaring. John, can you please come?
Thank you. Thanks for that great introduction. I did indeed just arrive a few hours ago, so I cancelled some sleep to be here today. For anybody that doesn't know me, I'm John Little. I'm the account manager responsible for the Caspian region for Masterflow. We're a choke valve manufacturer, a Canadian company. We'll go through a presentation today about our smart choke technology and the potential it has to reduce flaring. It's a wide and varied subject in that an oil field can be a very complex organisation. It can be a platform offshore, or it can be a single well in a remote location. So obviously the technology has to be adjusted to suit, but we have got some case study data which shows some real savings in the real world, which should be of interest to you. Too fast? Too fast? Yep. Will I tell a joke while you're away? Yeah. Did I tip him over the edge? Is that what it was?
You broke him, John.
Yeah. Excellent. Give me a chance to check and see what button works. Yeah, that's well, I managed to retain that level of excitement, given that I've not slept for a day. So. Well, I was going to say, usually there's someone offering to translate into English, which is the ultimate embarrassment of being Scottish. But it's always nice when you leave the ugly guy with the bad accent to last, though, right? So.
Where did you travel from?
I left Edinburgh on Monday morning, whatever day yesterday. So, yeah, just a particularly long layover in Istanbul, which is what it is, right? And it was the battle of, do I stay at home and watch my son's football team, or do I leave early to get here at a time when I can sleep and do that other sort of stuff? But they won. So, which was the most important thing. I was there to share in the victory. So, but the glamour of international business travel, I'm sure everyone's aware of it, right? My wife still thinks I'm on holiday. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was just killing time till you got back. Right, we're back in the room, and I will slow down. So, who are Masterflow and what do we do? I'm conscious that some people in the room may not know who we are. We're part of the Streamflow group of companies. We are a Canadian company like everyone else here. We are a family-owned business, a large family-owned business across all of our various sites across the world. We've got upwards of 1 million square feet of manufacturing and storage. The Streamflow group itself includes Masterflow as well as Streamflow, the wellhead manufacturer I know that some of you guys are familiar with. Again, the specific part of the company that I work for Masterflow. We're a choke valve manufacturer, and we also manufacture those chokes for subsea and surface applications, as well as the associated actuation. And today, we're going to talk about a specific bit of technology that is reasonably new to the business, with some case study references that will show where we can make some savings, both environmentally and financially. All starts with a customer. All good case studies start with a customer. This one's no different. The customer had a problem where the chokes were eroding. There can be several factors for erosion of chokes, as I'm sure everyone appreciates. A choke is deployed in harm's way. Whatever is coming out of the well hits a choke. So if there is particulate there, if there is debris there, if someone drops an object in the well, it ultimately comes back out again and hits a choke. So where the chokes are eroding, that means there has to be some form of intervention and some form of maintenance, which incurs cost, lost production. And sometimes you'll have to send your guys to site, because a lot of the sites that we're working on across the world can be in remote locations and not necessarily manned all the time. The other thing that happened, particularly in this case study, was there was flaring we were having a series of pressure events which were causing flaring to occur. We understand the impact of flaring both environmentally and financially. So the customer was keen for a solution which would give not only increases in production, but reductions in the flaring and the environmental impacts that it causes. The solution we offered was, of course, a master flow choke. There are a couple of things that are specific to that. The design itself in the choke lends itself to preventing erosion, and with the correct material selection can also prevent corrosion. So two things that would normally shut the valve down. And the Smart View package, this is our smart technology. This allows autonomous control of the choke. So a bunch of preset parameters can be put in, which will allow the choke to detect what's happening up and downstream and make adjustments on the fly in real time, whilst sending notifications to the users, letting everyone know what's going on, but keeping production optimized in real time with no intervention from staff. Everyone with my accent so far? Better now? So the original choke that was installed was a needle and seat choke. Lots of these chokes installed across the world. They're very popular. It's an old design that came from 1903, I think it was patented. They're cost effective and can often be seen as disposable. The bad news about it is they're very prone to wear. The design itself is basically built on friction between the needle and the seat to give the throttling effect. So where you have friction, you have erosion. We replaced these needle and seat chokes with a master flow choke, which is an external sleeve and cage design. This is an entire presentation on its own, as I'm sure you can appreciate, but the key factors there being that with opposing ports on the cage, we take the media from each side and impinge it on itself in the middle of the choke, dissipating about 30% of the energy which would wear the valve. We've dissipated that energy on the fluid itself, thus protecting the valve and prolonging the life of the valve whilst we do that. Because we know where that fluid impingement is going to take place, it also allows us to select the very best materials that we can use in that application. We have a proprietary grade of tungsten carbide, which is patented by Masterflow, which we use for all our trim components to make sure that erosion and wear are kept to a minimum. Smart View. This is the bit everyone put their glasses on for. The Streamflow group of companies acquired a company recently, a few years ago, who had this technology, which was in use in some military applications. We've taken it and applied it to what we do in the oil industry, which gives us a completely self-contained module. You can see in the picture there, where we're monitoring multiple things, upstream, downstream pressure, flow across the valve itself, any wear that's taken place in the trim. We can put parameters into the module, set those to trigger alarms or to trigger actions, which are all sort of user defined. So in this instance, we were looking at a pressure kick from the separator. If that had went too high, that was then to cause the choke to close. And then when the pressure recovered back to normal, the choke throttled open again. So you had an event taking place, which would result in a little adjustment in the valve, and then production resuming quickly without any intervention from any staff at all. This graph and this particular set of data here is the client's. It's not something that we've created. So you can see there that along the top, the choke remaining in its position. delivering production as you would expect. Where you have your episode or your curtailment, you see that we're causing a pressure drop in the red section there. That allows everything else in the process to recover. While that recovers and comes back to within normal parameters, the choke will then sense that, sense the changes in upstream and downstream pressure, allowing the choke to open again and full production to come back into play. Making sure that that's the slide I think it is. So what does that mean in terms of the environment and its impact on flaring? As you can see right at the far left there, I think it's about 37 million cubic feet of flaring that the customer was seeing. When they got in touch with us, we actually ran a prototype of this product before it was done. So these slides are a hybrid of the product that came before SmartView. But we basically went and we set an automatic choke in place there, the precursor to SmartView, which was then looking for the pressure differences at the separator. That had an almost immediate effect on flaring. It reduced it right away. The customer then decided to roll that out to the other chokes that were all across the asset. And as a direct result of that, you're going from 37 million cubic feet to, well, I can't see that, someone's going to have to tell me what it is. But as you can see, a significant reduction in the flared gas. So flared gas has an environmental impact and a financial penalty, both of which have been mitigated by the SmartView technology. When I say we've mitigated the flaring, everybody wants to know what's the dollar impact. So across this particular project in a 4-month period, the client data provided to us, $950,000 saved. In terms of the impact of maintenance, gas that's been flared, penalties, time spent traveling to and from site, that's the number that they put on it. So we've had an impact on the client's environmental credentials. We've saved them almost $1 million. And the client going forward is saying that the impact of that across all the future projects could be significant. So many more millions of dollars to be saved. All for a unit that's retrofittable and costs under $40,000 per valve. Sorry, under $4,000 per valve. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I guess we'll have a chance to catch up with you during Kyogi. You'll be presenting to a lot more. You're doing this probably same presentation 100 times, right? So a bigger one. Okay, we'll tune in for that. Okay, that wraps up today's event, and I just want to thank all of you in the viewing audience and you as well as our speakers for attending this session, and I hope that today's event will be beneficial to all of you and bring new business connections and opportunities. I would also like to remind everyone that we're holding a plenary session on November 25th. For the plenary, we have a long list of dignitaries and speakers who will also provide a recap of all 6 of the working groups that we've gone through this year. And that'll be part of the 5th Kazakhstan-Canada Business Council. I would especially like to thank Kazatomprom for sponsoring this year's KCBC and all of the organizers within Kazatomprom, AIDA, Zambota, ACNUR, who did most of the work, I guess. Thank you very much. As well as CECC, we have Frank, Tuskin, and Vera in Canada, who also participated and helped make this event possible. Also want to recognize Cameco Corporation for their continued support of KCBC throughout the years, as well as the embassies of Kazakhstan and Canada for their help and support. And we have two people from the Embassy of Canada here today, so maybe you can stand up and wave to the audience. Thanks. I would now ask Jandos to say a few words in closing, and for me, that's all for me. Thanks a lot. No, Jandos. Okay, Jandos won't be closing, so I guess that's all we have for today. As what was that cartoon said, that's all, folks. Thank you.